I never believed in second chances at love until that rainy Tuesday evening when my boss leaned across her desk and whispered those four impossible words. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, the day my world collapsed and somehow set me on a path to something beautiful I never saw coming. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys that remind us life's greatest surprises often come after our darkest moments. The divorce papers felt unnaturally heavy in my hands. 12 years of marriage reduced to legal jargon and signature lines. I sat alone in her kitchen, the one I'd renovated myself 2 summers ago, staring at the document that officially declared me a failure. "Just sign them, Daniel," Rebecca had said that morning before leaving for her Pilates class. "Your stubbornness isn't going to change anything." She was right. Nothing would change the fact that while I'd been working 60-hour weeks trying to provide the life she wanted, she'd been finding comfort in someone else's arms. Someone who apparently had more time to listen, to understand, to be present in ways my dedication to our financial security hadn't allowed. I signed the papers with a hand that didn't feel like my own. At 42, I was starting over. No wife, no children, and a house that had never quite felt like home now legally belonging to someone else. All I had was my job at Meridian Publishing, where I'd spent 15 years climbing from junior editor to senior acquisitions manager. It wasn't much, but it was something to hold on to while everything else crumbled. The following Monday, I arrived at work with dark circles under my eyes and a wedding ring tan line I couldn't seem to scrub away. I'd told no one about the divorce. Pride, perhaps, or simply the inability to speak the words aloud without breaking down. "Daniel, my office, please." The voice belonged to Katherine Winters, our newly appointed CEO. At 45, she'd taken over the company 6 months ago after the founder's retirement, bringing with her a reputation for brilliance and uncompromising standards that had already transformed our struggling publishing house into a competitive force again. I followed her into the glass-walled office overlooking the Manhattan skyline, notepad in hand, ready to discuss the manuscript acquisition she'd emailed about over the weekend. "Close the door," she said, not looking up from her computer. Katherine was intimidating in the way truly competent people often are. Tall, with dark hair always pulled back in a sleek bun, she wore power suits like armor and rarely smiled. The staff respected her, feared her a little, but no one really knew her. Rumors circulated that she'd sacrificed a personal life for her career, that she lived alone with 3 cats and a library that rivaled our company's archives. I'd always found the gossip distasteful. "The Whitman manuscript," I began, flipping open my notes. "I've reviewed it and I think—" "I didn't call you in to discuss Whitman," she interrupted, finally looking up. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You look terrible." I blinked, caught off guard by her directness. "I'm fine." "You're not," she stated flatly. "You haven't been for weeks. Your work is still exceptional, but you're not fine. What's going on?" Perhaps it was her unexpected concern, or maybe just the weight of carrying my secret alone, but something in me cracked. "I signed my divorce papers yesterday." Katherine's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened. "I see." She stood up and walked to a small cabinet, pulling out 2 glasses and a bottle of what appeared to be very expensive scotch. "This calls for something stronger than coffee." She poured 2 fingers in each glass and handed one to me. "To endings," she said, raising her glass slightly. "To endings," I echoed, the burn of the alcohol matching the sting in my eyes. 12 years, I found myself saying after a moment of silence. 12 years, and it turns out I never really knew her at all. Katherine sat on the edge of her desk, closer than she'd ever been to me before. I noticed a small scar near her left eyebrow I'd never seen before. "I was married once," she said quietly. 8 years. He left me for my best friend. The revelation stunned me. Katherine Winters, sharing something personal? "I'm sorry." She shrugged. "It was 10 years ago. But I remember how it felt, like someone had hollowed out everything inside me and left just enough to keep breathing. That's exactly how it feels, I admitted. It gets better, she said, finishing her scotch. Not quickly, and not in a straight line, but it does get better. She straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. Now, about the Whitman manuscript. I agree with your assessment. Make the offer. Just like that, the moment of connection was over, and we were back to business. But something had shifted between us, a small crack in the wall that separated boss from employee, stranger from friend. The weeks that followed brought unexpected changes. Katherine began inviting me to join her for working lunches, ostensibly to discuss acquisitions but often veering into conversations about books we loved, places we traveled, and occasionally, carefully, the process of rebuilding after heartbreak. I learned she didn't have 3 cats but one elderly golden retriever named Hemingway. She didn't live in a sterile apartment filled with books but in a brownstone in Brooklyn with a garden she tended on weekends. She laughed, really laughed, at my terrible literary puns, and she remembered how I took my coffee without ever being told. Meanwhile, I was slowly putting myself back together. I found an apartment not far from the office, small but with good light for the plants I suddenly wanted to grow. I joined a gym, not to meet women as my well-meaning friend Marcus suggested, but to exhaust myself enough to sleep through the night. I started reading for pleasure again, something I'd stopped doing years ago when reading became just work. 3 months after signing my divorce papers, Katherine and I were the last ones in the office, reviewing the next season's catalog. Rain pounded against the windows, and the city lights blurred into watercolor smudges below us. We should call it a night, she said, rubbing her eyes. The rest can wait until tomorrow. I nodded, gathering my papers. I think we've made good progress. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. We make a good team, Daniel. We do, I agreed, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the office heating. Would you? She hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. Would you like to get dinner? Not to discuss work. Just, dinner. My heart stuttered. I'd like that very much. That dinner led to another, and then to walks through Central Park on Sunday afternoons, to art exhibitions and jazz clubs and quiet evenings cooking together in her kitchen while Hemingway dozed at our feet. We were careful at work, professional and proper, but outside those walls, we were discovering each other piece by piece. Katherine was nothing like Rebecca. Where my ex-wife had been demanding and dissatisfied, Katherine was self-sufficient and appreciative. Where Rebecca had seen my dedication to work as neglect, Katherine understood it as responsibility. They were different in every way, except for one thing: both had the power to break my heart. And that terrified me. 6 months into our quiet, undefined relationship, I pulled back. The fear of being hurt again, of misreading signals, of ruining the one good professional relationship I had, it all became too much. I made excuses to cancel plans, kept our conversation strictly professional, and ignored the hurt confusion in her eyes. Have I done something wrong? She finally asked one evening, cornering me in the empty break room. No, I said quickly. I've just been busy with the Johnson acquisition. Daniel, she said softly, I've known you for years. You're a terrible liar. I stared at the coffee machine, unable to meet her eyes. I can't do this, Katherine. Do what, exactly? You haven't defined what this is. That's just it, I said, frustration bubbling up. I don't know what this is. Are we friends? Are we dating? Are you my boss who feels sorry for the pathetic divorced guy? Her eyes flashed. Is that what you think? That I pity you? I don't know what to think, I admitted. I just know I can't go through it again. I can't give someone the power to destroy me. Katherine was quiet for a long moment. I understand fear, Daniel. Better than most. But at some point, you have to decide if protecting yourself from pain is worth missing out on everything else. She walked away, back straight, head high, every inch the CEO. But I'd seen the hurt in her eyes, and it haunted me. 2 weeks of awkward meetings and stilted conversations followed. The office noticed the tension, and rumors began to circulate. I threw myself into work, staying late, coming in early, anything to avoid thinking about what I might have thrown away. Then came the Frankfurt Book Fair, the biggest event in our industry calendar. Katherine and I were both scheduled to attend, along with several other team members. 5 days in Germany, in close quarters, with no escape. The flight was long and silent. We sat rows apart, both pretending to work. At the hotel, we nodded politely in the lobby before retreating to our separate rooms. The first day of the fair was a blur of meetings and networking, both of us performing our professional roles flawlessly while maintaining careful distance. On the second evening, there was a publisher's dinner at a historic restaurant in the old part of the city. Katherine wore a deep blue dress that made her eyes look like the ocean at dusk. I couldn't stop looking at her, even as I chatted with editors from rival houses and pretended to be interested in their acquisition strategies. After dinner, as people mingled with drinks, I found myself alone on a small balcony overlooking the city. The night was cool, stars unusually visible for an urban setting. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Katherine's voice came from behind me. I turned to find her standing in the doorway, 2 glasses of wine in hand. She offered one to me, and I took it, our fingers brushing briefly. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, looking out at the city rather than at me. "About not knowing what this is between us." My heart pounded. "Katherine. Let me finish," she said gently. "You were right. We never defined it. Maybe because we were both afraid to. But I'm not afraid anymore." She turned to face me fully. "I'm in love with you, Daniel. I have been for months, possibly years before I even admitted it to myself. And if you don't feel the same way, that's okay. We'll find a way to work together professionally. But I needed you to know." The world seemed to stop. Katherine Winters, the woman who negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking, who faced down board members and best-selling authors with equal composure, was standing before me vulnerable and brave in a way I hadn't been. "I'm terrified," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "Not because I don't feel the same way. I do. I love you in a way I didn't think was possible anymore. But what if? What if it ends badly?" she finished for me. "It might. There are no guarantees, Daniel. But what if it doesn't? What if this is the beginning of something extraordinary?" In that moment, looking at her under the stars in a foreign city, I made a choice. I chose hope over fear, possibility over protection. I set down my wine glass, took her face gently in my hands, and kissed her, really kissed her, for the first time. When we pulled apart, both breathless, she smiled. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," I whispered. "To whatever comes next." What came next was complicated and beautiful. We returned from Frankfurt as a couple, which meant difficult conversations with HR and the board. Katherine insisted on transparency, refusing to hide or apologize for our relationship while acknowledging the professional complexities. I was transferred to a different department, reporting to another executive, to avoid any conflict of interest. There were whispers, of course. Some suggested I was sleeping my way to the top, conveniently ignoring my 15 years of proven success at the company. Others thought Katherine was having a midlife crisis. We ignored them all and focused on building something real together. A year after that night in Frankfurt, we moved in together. Hemingway approved, immediately claiming a spot on my side of the bed. We merged our book collections, argued good-naturedly about art versus practicality in home decor, and learned each other's rhythms and quirks. It wasn't perfect. We both carried scars from our past relationships. There were nights I woke in a cold sweat, convinced she would leave. There were days she withdrew into silence, old insecurities surfacing. But we talked through it, sometimes arguing, sometimes in tears, always finding our way back to each other. On our second anniversary, Katherine took me to the small Italian restaurant where we'd had our first dinner together. After tiramisu and espresso, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I have something to ask you," she said, uncharacteristically nervous. "Anything," I replied, squeezing her fingers. She took a deep breath. "My position at Meridian is secure now. The company is thriving. I've been thinking about the future, our future." My heart raced. Was she going to propose? We discussed marriage in abstract terms, both a little wary given our histories, but increasingly open to the possibility. "I've been offered the chance to open a London branch," she continued. "It would mean relocating, at least for a couple of years." "Not a proposal, then." I tried to hide my disappointment. "That's a tremendous opportunity." "It is," she agreed. "But I won't take it unless you're with me. Not just as my partner, but as my husband." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple platinum band. "Daniel Hayes, will you marry me and come build a new adventure with me?" The restaurant seemed to fade away, leaving only her face, her eyes, her question hanging between us. 2 years ago, I would have hesitated, calculated risks, imagined worst-case scenarios. But the man I'd become, the man she'd helped me become, knew better. "Yes," I said, my voice steady and sure. "Yes to all of it." She slipped the ring onto my finger, and it felt right in a way my first wedding band never had. This wasn't about societal expectations or checking boxes on life's timeline. This was about choosing, every day, to love someone who chose you back with equal intention. We married in a small ceremony in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, with Hemingway serving as ring bearer, with some human assistance. My daughter from my first marriage, now a college sophomore who had gradually warmed to Katherine over family dinners and holiday visits, was there, genuinely happy for us. Katherine's brother flew in from Seattle, bringing his wife and twins who immediately adopted me as Uncle Daniel. 3 months later, we moved to London, where Katherine launched Meridian's European division with characteristic brilliance while I took on a role as creative director, working with British and European authors. We bought a small house in Hampstead with a garden for Hemingway's final years and room for visiting family. Life wasn't without challenges. We navigated cultural differences, professional setbacks, the loss of Hemingway, and a brief health scare that reminded us how precious our time together was. But through it all, we chose each other, day after day, building a love that was both shelter and adventure. 5 years after that whispered question in her office, "Be my husband," I stood with Katherine on London Bridge, watching the Thames flow beneath us, her hand warm in mine despite the December chill. "Any regrets?" I asked, something I still needed to hear occasionally. She turned to me, the lines around her eyes deeper now but her gaze as clear and direct as ever. "Only that I waited so long to whisper those words to you." I pulled her close, kissing her forehead. Everything happened exactly when it needed to. And standing there, with the woman who had seen me at my broken worst and believed in me anyway, I knew it was true. Our timing had been perfect, not despite our past heartbreaks but because of them. We had needed to become the people who could recognize and cherish what we'd found in each other. Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one. You just have to be brave enough to turn the page. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores life's unexpected journeys. Remember that your happiest chapter may still be waiting to be written, even after what feels like the end. Share in the comments if you've ever found love in an unexpected place. Your story might inspire someone who needs hope today.